My fiancé left me for the one that got away, but now he wants me back. My fiancé and I had been together 3 years. He was my first boyfriend. We laughed, cried, and were overall very happy together. Our families had mixed really well. Our moms became close friends really fast. He was my best friend, my confidant, my support, my comfort. I looked at him and could see our future together. I'm even crying remembering one time we took a blanket, went outside, and looked up at the stars like in some book. I never thought something like this could happen to me. The man I loved could have never done anything like that to me. It all started about 2 months ago. His high school sweetheart, who he was with for 7 years, moved back to our country and wanted to catch up with Mark. He told me they broke up because they were unable to sustain a long-distance relationship when she left to pursue her postgraduate studies. They hadn't been in contact for 5 years. She sent him an email, he showed it to me and it was completely platonic. She was just curious about what he had become. He asked me if he could meet her and I said yes. I trusted him. So he went, but when he came back he was a bit withdrawn. He is usually really chatty, but he was dismissive when I asked him how it went. I let it go. However, the following weeks he was often on his phone. He picked random fights with me and didn't look me in the eyes when we had intimacy, didn't whisper loving words either. I'm really touchy, and in our 3 years together he had never once recoiled or refused my embrace, but he started doing it. I usually hug him like a koala when he comes back home from work, but he only let me do it twice. It was such a sudden change. I asked him what was wrong, but he just said he wasn't feeling too good nowadays. On a Saturday I went to visit his grandma as we usually knit together, and I was gone the whole day. I feel really close to her because she adopted me easily and reminds me of my own, who died when I was in high school. When I came back I found him packing his stuff. My whole world fell apart. He was being so cowardly. He told me he was sorry for making me suffer like this, but sometimes life gives you a second chance and you have to recognize it for what it is. That he loved me, but when he met his ex, he realized the feelings weren't the same. He said he regretted letting go of her. That he had found himself again. That it had been a difficult choice for him, but he had to take this chance. His ex wanted him back. She had realized what she had lost and risked losing for good when he told her he was getting married. He supposedly refused her at first, but as time passed, and they talked together, his old feelings came back. He hoped I would forgive him one day and understand. I cried as he was talking. It sounds stupid, but it was as if it was a stranger in front of me. He said he would still pay rent and part of the bills until our lease was up and I could find another place. He makes a lot more than me and I wouldn't be able to afford living in our apartment on my own. I begged him not to make this mistake, that he was being fooled by an idealized memory of their past together, that he was having cold feet. But he was like a wall, he didn't even look at me. At about 10 p.m. there was a truck outside with one of his friends waiting for him. He apparently came to help him move. I wasn't really close with that particular friend, but he did seem sorry for me. Mark hugged me goodbye and left. I hadn't cried that hard in years. I slept in our spare room not to feel the emptiness of our room with his things gone. I sank to the deepest pathetic depths and tried to call him, but it went to voicemail. I had no idea where he went, but assumed he was now living with his ex after 3 weeks of talking again. How ridiculous. I'm really lucky to have supportive friends and family. My best friend even moved in for 5 days. My parents wanted me back home with them, but I wasn't ready to leave. Mark is a bit messy and I love everything clean, so it felt weird having everything perfectly neat. I missed his messiness. It was as if he was the one making our house a home. He used to joke about me wanting the house to look like it was on sale or in a catalog. Not waking up to make breakfast, not seeing him read lying on the sofa while I studied felt weird. Not buying his favorite snack or powder proteins when doing groceries felt weird. I felt really lost at first. It was like grieving. Usually when people break up, the relationship goes south, but to me it came out of nowhere. I still loved him. I was still planning the wedding and working on my side to build our future together. It was all gone in a day. I wish I had been smarter and refused to meet his one that got away. His family was dumbfounded. I still went to see his grandma and she told me he was a fool, that he would come back crawling to me. She was the first person who managed to make me laugh. Maybe she'll be right. My fiancé left me for the one that got away, but he now wants me back. His grandma was right. About a week ago I received a letter from him. He apologized for leaving me like this. It said he made the biggest mistake of his life. That he couldn't even believe what he had done. That he was writing me this letter because he didn't have the courage to face me.
You were right, I was running after a perfect relationship that had never existed. I regret it so much. I thought I was in love with her, but in reality I was in love with what she represented. My younger self with no responsibilities and only dreams. I had cold feet and got afraid of moving forward into this new segment of my life. I couldn't stop thinking about you when I was with her. She is not you. She doesn't know me or loves me like you. She doesn't smell like you. I missed hearing you sing randomly throughout the day, I missed having someone nagging me to pick up stuff, I missed planning Halloween parties for the kids with you. At the time I'm writing this letter we would have probably been decoration shopping had I not been a fool. Everyone told me, but I was being a blind fool. I would do anything to go back in the past and slap some sense into myself. I would do anything for you to forgive me. I know we have already started canceling everything, but I'm ready to pay for everything myself. You can date someone else to even scores if you want, as long as you come back to me.
He kept on with apologies and begging me to forgive him. Now I told my family and his mom and grandma. Grandma had a very satisfying "I told you so" moment. However, she is rooting for me to forgive him. His mom was supposed to send a formal letter to guests to tell them the wedding was off, but now is waiting for my answer. I don't know what to do. I love him with all my heart, but what he did to me, I don't know if I can get over it. He made me feel worthless. He threw me away as if I was no one to him after 3 years. He gave up on us for some ghost from his past when we were at our happiest. If he can leave me when we are doing good, how will we sustain a marriage? He hurt me so badly and expects me to forgive him? He wants us to meet on Sunday, but I'm not sure. I'm willing to.
I was fired over a false rope accusation. The company tells me I can't sue them. I held a management position at a company. I asked a non-management employee of the opposite intimacy to step into another room to discuss her performance away from other employees. She was going through a divorce and had made a few mistakes, and while I didn't want to embarrass her, I did want to make sure the mistakes were addressed. She acknowledged it and thanked me. An hour later, I was escorted from my office by security and was informed by my boss that an intimate harassment complaint had been made and proper protocol was to suspend me. I asked what it was and was told, "We need to investigate. I can't disclose that." He assured me that it shouldn't take long, and if I wasn't guilty of anything, I'd be paid for the time out. I again asked what the accusation was and was told that as there was an ongoing investigation, I was not permitted to know, but if they had questions, I would be contacted. I wasn't happy, but knowing that I didn't do anything wrong, I left the building. Later that night, I received a notification on my phone that my email password was incorrect. After 2 days, I called my boss asking for an update and was told he was not available, but I would hear something soon. I began calling daily and received the same response. Finally, I received a letter in the mail informing me that I was terminated for exposing myself and requesting intimate favors from an employee, as well as attempting to rope her in the office. The employee listed was the young lady I had pulled into the side room. I immediately called up my boss and was told, "He is unavailable," and said to say the matter is closed. My buddy, the IT guy, messaged me on Facebook asking what happened, as he'd been told to deactivate my accounts. When I told him the whole story, he replied, "You took her into that room. Dude, there's a security camera in there. We keep some important stuff in there, so we always have the camera on." Sure enough, he pulls the footage and there I am, holding a pile of papers, pointing to them, and keeping my pants on the whole time, not approaching her and certainly not trying to rope her. I left a message for my boss that the alleged incident occurred in a room with surveillance and that I would be contacting an attorney and subpoenaing the video record. I received a call back 15 minutes later asking me to please participate in a phone conference with him and HR. The conference went as expected. They didn't realize it had occurred in a room with surveillance. They have a zero-tolerance policy that they have to enforce. You can't be too careful in this day and age. They regret that this didn't come to light sooner. They've already replaced me, and as it wouldn't be fair to terminate my replacement as she's done nothing wrong, they don't have a job to offer me back. However, as a gesture of goodwill, they're going to pay me through my suspension, change my file so it reads that I voluntarily resigned, and provide me with a good reference. I replied that wasn't acceptable. They made a false accusation against me, withheld vital information that I could have easily refuted, refused to take my calls, and completely failed in their own investigation by not checking video footage that would have immediately exonerated me. They asked what I thought would be fair. I told them they could immediately terminate the employee who made the accusation and either give me my job back or pay me out 1 year's salary in addition to what was offered. My boss said that he could not discuss another employee with me, and that neither of those options are feasible. The only options I have are what he already offered. I replied that the options I gave are the only way I'm not going to sue the company along with the employee. My boss replied that I signed an agreement when I was first hired saying I would take all disputes through arbitration and that I waived my right to sue the company. I do not remember signing the agreement, and I have not seen it, but it apparently says that I will take all disputes to arbitration, I will bear the costs of arbitration, and that I will accept the decision in arbitration. He stated that I will not fare any better in arbitration than he's already offered and I'll be out the money to cover the arbitration. I feel like I'm being bullied here, and don't think he would have scheduled a phone conference with such immediacy if he didn't think the company was vulnerable to a lawsuit. I'm waiting on a callback from a few employment attorneys. I was fired over a false rope accusation. The company tells me I can't sue them. A friend of mine at another company, after hearing what happened, he told me his company had an opening. I applied, interviewed, and at the end the manager asked me what I'd like to be called. 2 days later I got a call saying they'd gone with another candidate. My friend admitted to me that he'd gotten some flack for recommending me. Apparently HR had worked with one of the employees at my former company, and called the employee to ask what the deal was with me. To which the employee responded, he got fired for trying to rope a subordinate. I think he's actually being charged criminally. Long story short, I lost it, called up my old company, and the boss wouldn't get on the phone with me. Had an attorney draft a letter of demand and send it off. Had another phone conference scheduled. They once again regret that an employee provided a reference outside of the prescribed channels. The employee was coached on the proper way to handle such requests. My attorney informed them that in addition to wrongful termination, we would be adding defamation to our complaint against them. They insist that they have not broken any laws and they cannot control the actions of an individual employee who went against company policy. So we're at an impasse there. Either I move ahead against them, or I walk away. At this point I'm ready to drag this through court. I tried to take the high road and go elsewhere, but they're regretting a lot that they've done to me without any action to correct it. Oh. I almost forgot, they also sent me a packet of papers. Standard non-disclosure notifications, COBRA, and a blank copy of the arbitration agreement for me to sign. Why a blank one, you ask? Well, it seems somebody effed up. They weren't making people sign when I was hired, and HR never bothered to have me sign the agreement when I worked there. I of course have signed nothing that they sent me, including that agreement. I considered allowing arbitration if they pay the costs and I have approval over who is selected, but my attorney has advised not to do that. I wish I had better news to report. Things aren't as hopeless as they'd first seemed, but not as easily fixable either. As for the employee who made the accusation, I can't comment on what's happening there. Update 2, I was fired over a false rope accusation. The company tells me I can't sue them. I found out exactly what happened and why I was accused. I pulled one of my subordinates, Deborah, into another room to discuss a few mistakes she made, but did not discipline her further. After this, she went to Joyce, one of the managers above me but not in my direct line of report. Equal to my boss in terms of reporting structure. When Joyce heard that I had taken Deborah into another room without any witnesses, she said to her that it was unprofessional. Apparently her exact words were, you could accuse him of being inappropriate with you, and I would have no choice but to believe you. This was repeated several times, with a strong emphasis on no choice. Joyce then asked Deborah if I had been inappropriate with her, saying, "It will only happen again if you don't speak up now. If you do now, we can take action." Taking the not at all subtle hint from Joyce, Deborah accused me of exposing myself to her, accused me of trying to effing rope her. I also found out that when I wanted to take the new job, Sandy, an employee in Joyce's department, broke protocol and talked to HR at the new company, told them I had tried to rope a subordinate, and cost me the job. I was sick of the defamation at this point in my attorney and I launched a civil suit against the company and Deborah. The reason I found out why I was accused was because Joyce said she'd protect Deborah if she came forward. Unfortunately, that only extended to her job. So when Deborah was named individually in this suit, the corporation told her they would not be providing her an attorney. After realizing that she'd be putting her house up for collateral, she was all too willing to throw Joyce under the bus. Joyce went to Paul, the IT guy, who was one of her reports and gave him a list of footage to be procedurally wiped as part of an archive clearout. He pointed out that the incident with me was on that list and part of an ongoing investigation. Joyce told him that it was no longer needed and to go ahead and wipe it. He refused, citing the fact that it would still be requested in the event that the suit moved forward. She told him to pack his things as he was being terminated for insubordination. He called the company attorney and informed her what had happened. The aftermath: several things happened at once, so I'll try to keep them as chronological as I can. Deborah's attorney contacted mine stating that, conditional on me dropping the suit, she would admit that she lied and explain what went on behind the scenes. Dana, the company attorney, got the call from my attorney with the details from Deborah shortly after she finished talking with Paul about him being terminated for refusing to destroy evidence. Deborah and Joyce were terminated for cause that day. Paul was told that his job was safe. My attorney received a call, and it was made clear that the company didn't want this to go any further and wanted to talk about a settlement. I was offered my job back with a very fair increase, I received back pay from the date of suspension, and a public apology was offered from the very top. My ex accused me of cheating and my dad believed it. Years later my dad came crawling back. I am a feminine-looking man, to the point where it is an odd day if I am not mistaken for being a female. I lived with my dad my entire life due to my mom dying from complications of childbirth. We were each other's best friend from day one, and when I came out to him as bi as a 16-year-old, he came out to me right back as a bi man, saying it must run in the family before we both laughed. I already figured this much, as he had just as many one-on-one sleepovers with men as he did women. I never minded, as long as he was happy then good for him. I was never neglected, I never wanted for anything, we had pretty much the perfect father-son relationship. I met my now ex-boyfriend Tobias in senior year of high school as he was a transfer student. We hit it off instantly and became a couple, and were so close to the point that I wanted to marry this man ASAP. We both attended the same college and got an apartment together, life was going amazingly. A week after my 20th birthday, I walked in on him sleeping with a girl I had never met. I flipped out on him and we both cursed each other out through tears, him pulling out the cheater's classic card of "you haven't been there for me." I just fell out of love. I kicked him and his girlfriend out. After I had spent an hour packing everything for him, I got a phone call from my dad cussing me out and calling me a horrible person for cheating. I was immediately taken aback and tried to tell my side of the story, but my dad wasn't having any of it and told me to lose his number for a while, as no son of his would ever be able to cheat. I couldn't help it, I broke down and began crying and bawling, as this piece of trash lied to my dad before I even thought of telling him, and tanked our relationship. I decided to move out of the apartment later on with the help of a cousin, Eric, who lived about 10 minutes away and who hadn't heard either side of the story yet. I told him the whole story and told him not to contact my dad about me, as he chose my ex's side before even trying to hear me out, basically ruined all chances he had of me trusting him again. We got packed and I moved a city away, finished my bachelor's degree in computer science, and am now currently working as a software engineer. I met my current girlfriend Amanda of 8 months, after we were part of a math class project we both had and became friends. I was really hesitant to open myself back to love, but we took it slow and I told her everything about what happened before we ever got serious. I never thought I could love again, and now I absolutely adore her to pieces. Now, 2 days ago I was in the kitchen, washing dishes while Amanda was mopping our living room floor. I heard a knock on the door and, not expecting any packages or any visitors, went and opened the door. I saw my dad standing there, looking like total crap. His eyes were bloodshot, his face was red, and he looked like he had just finished crying. He asked if we could speak and I immediately slammed the door in his face and ran to my bedroom. Amanda heard the commotion and came to get me, asking what the matter was. I told her that my dad was at the door, and as soon as those words left my mouth, I saw a vein pop out of her head. She then proceeds to go out there and scream at him for what he put me through over the last year, telling him he has no nerve to show up here and to get his sorry butt out of here. He told her to tell me that he learned the truth from Tobias after he texted him out of guilt and confessed to everything, and then he left. I went on my Facebook Messenger account, which I haven't used in months, and there I saw that he had sent me messages detailing everything he told my girlfriend, along with his new phone number, and that he had gotten my address from Eric after prying for it for days. I haven't blocked him yet, and I asked for a meeting for him to tell me, in his own words face to face, everything that happened. I told him that this was not to be considered an attempt at reconciliation and that I do not know if I could ever trust him again. He understood, and we are meeting at a local park later today. I don't know what he will say.